It is my honor and humble privilege to introduce to you this morning my brother, Lance Williams, who, appropriately, the passage from today, I will say, is very relevant about the one who, in their poverty, gives all that there is to give, which transforms the face of the earth. You know, here's a man who, gifted with no more humanity than we have, and the limitations of what all that means, has a story that he's willing to come before you today and share with the hopes that we begin to become the community that heals the wounds of this world, that reflect what we profess to believe in our faith. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Special Forces veteran, Army Ranger Lance Williams.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Father Phil, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for coming here and showing respect for those who have served our country, those who continue to serve our country, but more importantly, those who serve the idea of what humanity should be. And ultimately, I would like to begin by taking a moment of silence just to remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifices for something that's altogether greater than each of us. Thank you. As Reverend Phil mentioned, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lance. I am a Posse Scholar at Wesleyan University, and I served in the 75th Ranger Regiment for 5 years, and I did 2 deployments in Afghanistan. I'm going to have to ask your forgiveness ahead of time if what I'm going to say is not popular. It's not going, sometimes it's my truth, and it's the only truth that I know. So I hope that if anything I say might cause some emotions in you to surface that you're confused about or anything, that we can have the strength to come together in fellowship afterwards, or and it's an open dialogue, and I hope that each of us has the strength to continue that conversation. I want to tell you a little bit about my identity as a veteran, as a human being, and then I want to tell you a little bit about my story and the things that I've learned in my service. And I also would like to tell you about how I found God yesterday, actually, ironically. It was yesterday that we were celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the sobriety of one of our fellow community members, Udi, who is a resident at Follow Me Home, which is a recovery home right down the street in Portland, Connecticut, that seeks common fellowship and understanding and suffering to strip away some of the stigmas and the biases that we've placed on one another in terms of how we've evolved. And so the first place that I want to bring us to is just, I want to be honest and say that over the past few years, it's somewhat taboo, but I've struggled with depression quite a bit. For reasons that I hope will become clear. And it wasn't until yesterday that I finally felt alive again. And I want to talk about that and to tell you how that came to be. First, I think it's important you understand the reasons why I served, and to understand that oftentimes war complicates your relationship with yourself and your relationship with humanity and society. And the reasons that I served and went into the military are altogether different than the reasons that I continued to go to war. And the best, I don't have the words that can describe it, but I brought a poem of my own that I want to share with you, that I hope will articulate what America meant to me and what I still feel it means to me. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. I think a lot of what we've said today rings true in this poem. The idea of humanity that is within all of us. The idea of being compassionate, not only when it's convenient, but especially when it's the hardest. For me, that happened in 2013 for me. Maybe I can just tell you a little bit about what it's like to go out on a mission as a ranger every night. And then hopefully through that you'll be able to see the grapple that as an individual you have with your beliefs. And in the end, I hope to demonstrate that it's actually love that gets you through. It's not hatred. Sorry if I'm emotional, because like I said, I just found this clarity yesterday. And I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that. But going out on missions as a ranger is basically every mission that we go out on is a direct action mission to, I'll just say it, to kill or capture people who we know who have harmed others, who we have gathered information that we know that people who have either facilitated or helped directly harm and oppress others. And there's no average night, but usually the mission will drop, and by the way, we're only awake during the nighttime, so you don't see the daylight for months on end, and every night you wake up to a mission that's dropped, a target. And what happens is quite extraordinary, actually. It's completely silent in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan. The air is crisp and cold. And there's a series of tents that we all inhabit. We're over there, and that's where we live. Each of us having a room that's probably the walking space no bigger than the space between the benches that you're sitting in right now. It's not much, but it's fascinating to wake up and chaos is just unleashed. You're trying to plan for this mission, every little detail, so that we can keep one another safe and so that we can successfully navigate the mission and everyone knows exactly what's supposed to happen. Meanwhile, there's loud music that blares, which is usually heavy metal, and it's rage, and it's chaos. There's anger. There's a lot of emotions that go into it. But at some point before the mission, Every single time there's a moment where it's silent. And it's in that silence that we come to find our own relationship and our own peace. It's not a pleasant thought, but for me, that silence was filled with the understanding that I was willing to die. It's not a pleasant thought, but what is pleasant is the fact that of what I was willing to die for. Think about my family, of course, my loving fiance, who unfortunately she couldn't be here today. She's in Chicago celebrating the wedding of one of our close friends. But I would think about my family, my mother, my father, my brother, and then I would peacefully drift into a sonder, which is to think about the people that I don't know, many faceless people who are living their lives the same time that I am. American, in Afghanistan, all people. And then chaos breaks out again. And I want to tell you about one specific moment back in 2013 where we're on a mission, and it was in our exfil from the mission that we learned that we had stepped on a live bomb that luckily didn't go off. And at the time, we kind of laughed it off and said, oh, it's a good thing someone flunked out of physics class. But looking back on that, what I realize now and I didn't realize then was that was God. No other explanation for it. Because in other ways, 2013 was a heavy year for me. Everything that I had believed in and everything that I thought was my truth was torn apart. In 2013, I was hurt in a training incident that I was nearing the end of my contract, so it just, me and my fiance talked that it was probably just best to hang up the uniform. But it was during the time that I was in recovery that I missed a third deployment that ended up killing two of our fellow Rangers, Sergeant Patrick Hawkins and PFC Cody Patterson, in addition to two coalition forces, Sergeant Joseph M. Peters, who was part of international police security forces in Italy, and First Lieutenant Jennifer M. Moreno, the United States Army. I struggled for a long time after this because I was powerless. And the only natural thing to do is to try as best you can to articulate why it is that we even do this. Like, why is it that we allow hate and chaos and anger and rage to manifest itself in war, and why is it that we don't learn, that we can't see that if we just see one another with love and humanity, and believe that the world can be a better place, that perhaps it could, and to not let fear guide us. Well, for a long time I could understand that because I was angry. I was filled with anger. I was angry at myself for not understanding what isn't meant to be understood. I transitioned from the military and I saw, to the capacity that anyone can really transition from that life. I saw the America that I thought I knew, the ideas that I thought I was fighting, the ideas that are mentioned in the poem and throughout all the readings that we've heard today. I wasn't able to gain a sense of humanity anymore. And naturally, that isolated me because in an effort to communicate these things that are hard to articulate, they're difficult to articulate when you're viscerally experiencing them. Sometimes it just feels like it's you that's wrong, and that's you that has a flawed perception of what humanity is and what reality is, and that can alienate a person, quite frankly. But I speak to you today because of something that happened yesterday that I said that I would close with, which is and first off, I should mention that I'm grateful that God endowed me with a sense of humanity, that despite how angry that I was, that I never lost a desire to feel humanity in a more that I never lost the desire to connect with those who I otherwise would have a difficulty understanding. And so, there's a gentleman from Middletown, his name's Fasulo. Maybe some of you know him, but he changed my life. Yesterday started like probably most any other day. I tried to get up, put a smile on your face, and you just try to be a good person and to make the most out of every day. And it was Udi's 1 year anniversary of his sobriety, and so I wanted to do my best. That even though I was feeling pretty down, to be honest, but I was trying to do my best to just keep my heart open and to help him and to make the day be about him. And so I don't remember exactly when it happened during the day. I don't remember, but at some point I passed a conversation that just caught my ear. And what you have to know about Fasulo is he's very, very he's very animated with the way that he presents his ideas in a way that's just, it's extraordinary, but it's also something that I think that the timing was just right, because there are times where I would have probably saw what was happening and thought I would have been averse to listening and really opening my heart to the words that he had to say. And Fasulo basically talked about everything that I spent the past 3 years trying to understand. I study at the College of Social Studies, and part of that is to study literally how we got here. The social theory, the ways that we rationalize, the structures that we've created, and the way that we've justified certain institutions that we've created. And what I realized is through talking with him and listening to him really was that words are powerful, but words are, in the end of the day, they're words. They're meant to convey, they're powerful in part because they're meant to convey meaning, but they're wonderfully limited. And I'm grateful that it wasn't really the words that he said in particular that necessarily changed my view of the world and myself, but it was rather the way that it made me feel. See, he has a tendency to change angles a lot and talk in a way that really forces you to listen very, very closely. And if you don't listen closely, he's going to lose you because he's probably smarter than you as well. It took me probably a good 5 minutes to really understand that. And within the course of a half an hour, he had successfully navigated and talked about everything that I had been trying to learn, from the state of nature and war to the ideas that we have for nationalism, patriotism, and the idea that all we're trying to seek in this world is peace and love. So for me, I just would like to close, I guess, by saying that I'm grateful for having just the opportunity to have met you, Reverend Phil, and Sue. And I'm grateful to have community with each and every one of you, and I'm grateful to live in a country that gives me the freedom to talk about things that I otherwise am not too comfortable speaking about. And I also recognize that that's not equally the case for everybody. And so that is, I believe that is going to be my purpose in life, is to try to figure out how we can share a common humanity when there's so much anger that circulates in society, and to just simply love and to be. And I hope that, like Fasulo was my golden gate, he was my golden door, I hope that there's someone out there that I can serve in that capacity. And if it wasn't for Udi sobriety, it wouldn't have been possible. Thank you.